Hi, my name is Tsatsi, and today I have the pleasure of being joined by Tendai the Beast Mtawarira. Tendai is a 2019 Rugby World Cup winner, and at the time at which he retired, he was the third most capped Springbok of all time and also the most capped South African Super Rugby player. Tendai is also a businessman with many ventures across different sectors and industries, and he's also an ambassador for UNICEF and also has his own foundation called the Beast Foundation, where he supports and empowers the youth through sport, skills development, and education. Welcome, Tendai. How are you today?
I'm great, and yourself, Honsi? It's great to be here.
I'm good, thank you. I'm going to jump right into it. Can you tell us a bit about your life, the early years in your life, when you were still in Zim? Where did you grow up? What was life like in those early years?
Yeah, so I was born in Harare, Zimbabwe, as you probably know, to Bertha and Felix Mtawarira. And at birth, I actually broke a record because I was the heaviest baby I think that had ever been born in Zimbabwe. I weighed a whooping 5.5 kgs. So my mom went through a lot of pain to deliver me. Yeah, my parents, gave me and my siblings quite a great start in life. You know, we lived a simple life. My dad was the provider, and my mom was just a housewife. You know, she was the cornerstone of the household. And life was pretty simple. And my parents instilled that education was important. And they drove us to working hard and improving, in our academics. You first had to do well in class for you to be able to play sports. And I think that shaped me as a person, and even in things that I'm currently pursuing in life now. And at the age of about 9 years old, I discovered a passion in rugby. So before that, I was actually a soccer player, and I was a goalie. I looked a little bit lost on a soccer pitch, and rugby got introduced, and I was nudged to go and join the rugby program because of my size, and I was quite big, and it was quite a little bit of a tough transition, initially, but eventually because of my size and my aggression, I was able to adapt quickly. And rugby became an outlet for me to expand all my energy, and it did wonders for my growth. Taught me a lot of great life lessons, teamwork, hard work, discipline, trusting the process, and it actually elevated me in the classroom as well. So when I got into my early teens, all my mentors, my family were telling me that, if I took it seriously enough, I could potentially become a professional one day because, I was dominant on the rugby field, and everybody knew about me from a young age, all across the country. And obviously with a nickname like Beast, it made it pretty difficult for people to not notice me. And that nickname actually embodied everything, that I was and that I still am today. So yeah, rugby became, an outlet for me as well to change my circumstances.
Awesome, man. I'm glad you mentioned your nickname, the Beast. When did that come about, and what's behind that name?
So that's actually a funny story. I've been asked that question quite often by journalists and the media. So that name started at the age of 9 years old, which is crazy because I was a bit of a man child, and I was quite aggressive. And my best friend, his name was Kuda. He gave me that nickname because he felt like it suited my mold and who I was. And I think, X-Men, the cartoon came into picture, and there's a beast character in there. So that's where it kind of came from. And it stuck with me, throughout all these years, and it became like my persona. So pretty much I still chat to my friend, and he tells me I owe him royalties, for using the name that he gave me. So yeah, it's pretty cool, and I think it resembles who I am.
No, it's an awesome name, very iconic one, especially whenever, as a fan, having gone to the stadium to watch either the Springboks or the Sharks, whenever you get the ball and the whole stadium just goes beast, it's really something that's iconic for South Africans. You've achieved a lot in your career, particularly in rugby, and I think some of the achievements that I went through when we started the interview highlight that. That can give people the sense that it's always been smooth sailing, looking from the outside in. What are some of the challenges that people might not be aware of in your rugby career that you went through, and how did you deal with them? How did you approach them?
Yeah, Jose, there were a lot of challenges, and going back right to the start. When I moved across to South Africa, I was a young 18-year-old, with just a backpack with 2,000 rand and a couple of items of clothing and my Discman, and that was it. That's what I had in life, and the big thing was the dream that I had of becoming a professional rugby player. So, coming to a foreign land without any support, your parents providing for you, it was pretty tough. But I think that determination that I had, that do or die attitude for me, made the, difference, it kind of, lit a fire in me, so despite the fact that I couldn't put food on the table, and I just kept on being persistent and trusting that things were going to change. And fortunately at the Sharks Academy, we were well looked after. I got 3 meals a day. And I was able to do some odd jobs like being a bouncer at a nightclub. It's actually a funny story that many people don't know, that I was a bouncer. I used to do it part-time. I used to go to work from about 7 until 1 a.m. in the morning and get about 300 rand that I used to obviously buy extra food because I've got a big appetite, and obviously buy myself, maybe, a pair of boots or a pair of shoes. So yeah, all those moments kind of shaped me into the person I am today. It wasn't easy, but I just kept on, pressing forward, and I think my work ethic, I think that's probably what separated me from some of my peers, because I was willing to go further, and I was willing to dig deeper, than others. And I came here, and I was an unknown. I was just a young kid from Zimbabwe. So I had to quickly, earn the respect of people around me. And I did that through doing, massive feats of strength in the gym, where the boys would be like, whoa, this guy is squatting this much. And obviously the work that I did on the rugby field. So, that kind of gave me, that motivation to keep on going. And obviously, when I eventually made it, when I realized my dream of becoming a pro rugby player, I was faced with another curveball in 2010. Obviously, you probably know when I got pulled back from the Springbok squad because of my nationality, because at the time I was still holding a Zimbabwean passport. And for me, it didn't make any sense because I'd represented the country for nearly 2 years and had been part of the most successful year of Springbok rugby ever, probably in 2009, where we won everything, Tri-Nations, we won the British Irish Lions series, we beat the All Blacks 3 times in a row, and I was a big part of that. And then the following year, the Minister of Sport decided to pull me out, and it was purely, obviously political. It had nothing to do with me, but he used me as a as a scapegoat, to try and attack rugby. So it was pretty hard, during that moment. I had to rely on my family, my wife, Mkuzia, and my mom and dad. We just prayed and trusted. And I think my faith played a key role and still does to now. My faith, in the Lord, that, I've always gone to that place every time when I'm in times of trouble, times of need, and just trusting Him to bring me out of it. And yeah, that moment was one of those times, you know, when things were pretty hard, and I didn't know where my future was gonna go, because you know a lot of people were, you know, saying in my ear that you should leave, you know, and go play in France. But my heart was not there. My heart was here. I wanted to represent South Africa. I wanted to represent the Springboks. You know, I had that passion, that, you know, that love for the jersey. You know, even though I wasn't born here, but you know, I felt like I was an adopted son of the country. And yeah, so it wasn't easy, but through, you know, trusting and through prayer and, you know, and just hope, I was able to get back on track. And it was basically because the Archbishop Desmond Tutu came alongside me to help me get my passport. So they initially said that it was going to take about 12 years for me to get my South African citizenship, but the Arch made it possible within 6 weeks for me to have my citizenship, which was pretty remarkable. And yeah, then I was able to get back. And if it wasn't for the Arch, I probably wouldn't have been a world champion. I probably wouldn't have played 100 test matches. So I'm indebted to him forever. And yeah, he became a great friend of mine as well.
I want to move now into the next chapter, which is life after rugby. At which point did you start thinking about life after rugby, and why? What prompted you to?
I actually started thinking about life after rugby in my early 20s, mid 20s, because I knew for a fact that, you know, rugby wasn't forever. You know, I knew that there was a timeline, so I had to plan, you know, for life afterwards. And I was very fortunate to have some great mentors. And the guy called Jeremy Thompson, he was actually an ex-Springboks, ex-Sharks man, and he took me under his wing, and he taught me some really good lessons, saying that, you know, you can't just put your whole identity in rugby. You got to find other things. And he had made mistakes in his own career, so he didn't want me to make those same mistakes. So it's like you got to find other passions, and he got me in touch with a gentleman called Val Bartman, who runs now the biggest security company in South Africa. And Val is an ex-Springbok, and Val obviously liked me. You know, he liked the Bees brand, and they got me involved in his company as a sort of a poster boy doing adverts. And through that, you know, he taught me a lot about business. He invited me to invest and buy shares, and it was probably one of the best decisions I ever made to buy those shares in Fidelity, because, you know, they've grown exponentially since then. And yeah, you know, the fact that, you know, I got married at the age of 24 also made me think differently. You know, I had a young family, so I knew that, you know, I want my kids to have, you know, food on the table, you know, to go to school and never have to worry about anything. So I wanted to make sure that I create that financial sustainability. So I made a lot of good investments, you know, at that time, and I think that's what you guys do as Old Mutual. You know, you're, you know, pioneers in the insurance business and, you know, investment advisory and financial planning. So I was able to have a team of people around me at that time that advised me accordingly. You know, this is what you should get into. You know, I built a decent property portfolio as well. So I kind of, you know, worked on diversifying, you know, having multiple streams of income. And it actually helped me. So it actually lessened the burden of, you know, of my professional career. You know, because sometimes when you on the field and you've got worries about, you know, paying your mortgage and all these things, sometimes it can overshadow, you know, your performance on the field, you know. So I was able to kind of lift that burden off early, and I played with a clear mind, you know, and that played a, you know, a big role in shaping the player I became. So it's so important. It's my advice to other young players now. You know, I'm still involved in a lot of mentorship with young rugby players, and it's what I advise them. You know, you gotta make those decisions early. Find your passions off the field. Don't just be all rugby, rugby, rugby. Yes, it's what you're doing, but you can do other things as well because you do have time, to build even, a business or invest in another company. So it's so important to look at it that way.
In business, you have a diversified portfolio. You mentioned your association with Fidelity, but I know that you've got other business interests. Do you want to just take us through a couple of those and maybe highlight what interests you in some of them? What do you find the connection to be between you and some of those business interests that you have?
Yes, certainly. So I call myself a serial entrepreneur because I believe in the power of entrepreneurship, and I'm involved in security. I've got a wine business. I'm involved in health and wellness, and I think the reasons why I've entered into these ventures is because they're pretty much an extension of who I am. And I found that it's important to do what you love. It's important to get involved in things that you're really passionate about. Things that you'll be happy to wake up every morning and do. So I started this wine business because prior to that, I was an avid lover of wine, and people didn't know because obviously I was a professional sportsman and I was never vocal about my passion for wine. So in my early 20s, I used to buy wine on all my rugby tours, buying wine in Argentina, in Australia, New Zealand. I had a big wine cellar in my house, so it became a bit of a hobby. I believe in diversifying my portfolio because, as I said initially, having multiple streams of income is really important because if you put all your eggs in one basket, if it fails, then you got no other, options. So I wanted to have, diversity so that if something doesn't work out, I can tap into this basket. So it's so important, to diversify and find out what are your passions, and entrepreneurship, I'll probably see it as, the solution to resolving some of the issues that we face in society, in terms of, unemployment, poverty, and I think, if many people start businesses, then we can, have more people working, being employed by those businesses, and we can get, people off the streets, we can eradicate crime. So I see it playing a pivotal role, especially in the way we're going forward as Africans. So yeah, no, I believe so much in the power of entrepreneurship.
You plan very well, you execute very well, and you've got a lot of ambition. What lies ahead for the Beast in terms of your business portfolio? What are some of the goals that remain out there that you want to go after from a business perspective?
Oh, I've got some, pretty big goals, I'm highly motivated. And I think, the first one is that, I want to build an empire, you know. I want to build something that is going to go down to my kids, an inheritance for my kids, create that generational kind of wealth. And it all lies in the foundation of what I'm trying to create now, and I mentioned that mentorship factor. I've been actually privileged to have some iconic businessmen, impart a lot of wisdom and knowledge into me, and I've had my ears open, and my heart open to correction, to advice, and it's really done wonders for me on this path. And getting my business is up and running is of the utmost importance, and getting them to scale up. For instance, my wine business, I wanted to operate, globally. I want to be selling wine all over the world because I believe that obviously South African wines are some of the best wines in the world, and out there they don't really have the respect that they deserve. So I want to be part of changing that narrative. And also being a trailblazer in some sort of way. I want to pave the way for the next generation in everything that I do. You know, I want to change the perception that a lot of people have about, especially sportsmen of color, on how they transition into their next chapter. You know, I want to change that narrative in a big way because you know, I believe that, you know, my best days are ahead of me. You know, yes, I was a great rugby player. Yes, I won the World Cup, but I still believe that I can achieve so much more, you know, in this next chapter, you know, in my businesses, in my philanthropy, and I kind of see it as being the greater part of my legacy. So I don't want people to label me and say that, oh, this guy was a great rugby player, you know, and that's done. I want to be, you know, a great businessman. You know, I want to be, you know, a role model to other young players, you know, other sportsmen and sportswomen that, you know, one day want to transition well, that you can actually do it, you know. It is possible. It's not just for the privileged few, you know. You can actually do it. So for me, you know, changing that narrative, that perception is so important. Yeah, and also, you know, resembling, you know, good qualities. You know, I think being a man of integrity is so important, for, you know, to me. You know, I always want to, you know, do things, you know, in a good way and for the right reasons. So for me, always, you know, showing that and resonating that is so important. You know, especially for the younger generation, where we obviously marred, you know, by so much corruption, you know, so much bad governance. You know, I really want to become a good role model, you know, to just, you know, ordinary citizens. This is the way you should live life. So those are some of my goals in life, you know, that I'm pursuing on a daily basis. You know, being a great family man, I want to be a great husband to my wife. You know, I want to be a great father to my kids, you know. So, you know, all those different aspects of my life, you know, I just want to keep on building and, you know, hopefully, you know, laying down, you know, yeah, a great thing, a legacy for others to follow.
You spoke about your role in your immediate family, but a lot of the work that you do is also focused on supporting and uplifting others that are outside of your family. If I look at your ambassador role with UNICEF or the work that you do with the Beast Foundation, what attracted you to this type of work?
I think for me it was so important to give back, and that's why I got into this kind of work, you know. And being a humanitarian, you know, it's something that I was always attracted to because I wanted to be vocal about social issues. I wanted to be an advocate for, you know, for young children. And, you know, the foundation has started, you know, I can tell you it was inspired by my journey. You know, I was born in Zimbabwe, as I said earlier, and you know, there was a time when I didn't have a pair of boots. I didn't own my own pair of boots. I used to borrow from another player so that I could be able to run on the rugby field, you know, and play age group rugby. And, you know, it was, you know, I had so many struggles, you know. So, you know, coming to South Africa, you know, not having any money, you know, I was blessed to have, you know, people that invested in me. You know, they saw this young kid, you know, and they said, hey, you know what, we want to, you know, help you. You know, we want to uplift you. And through those, you know, the generosity, you know, I was able to climb up, you know, this ladder to my own success. So when I reached, you know, the top, when I got to, you know, hold that World Cup, you know, I retired and I decided that I wanted to do the same for others, you know, for other young, you know, kids out there that have got a dream but don't necessarily have the means, you know, or the opportunity to realize those dreams. So created the Beast Foundation to be that vehicle, you know, to empower young kids. And for me, it's so important. And that UNICEF role that I got as an ambassador for regional Eastern and Southern Africa is so important because now, you know, it amplifies what I'm trying to achieve, you know. And being an advocate, you know, especially for young kids, to get quality education is so important, you know, because I believe education is the greatest equalizer, in our society. If we can empower, our young children, to go to school, to be well equipped, on how to navigate life, I think there will be wonderful leaders of the future and will be, answers to the problems that we currently face. So we have to invest in them, we have to give them what they need. And, UNICEF is doing a lot of great work. I've done a lot of field trips with them to Zambia recently and one to Kenya. And, I just see that work is so crucial in the way we want to go, in the way we want this next generation, to achieve their full potential. So it is definitely something I'm really passionate about. It is the biggest fulfillment for me, to see a young kid, graduate and leave, their dream and go on to become, go on and get their dream job, and just live out their life in such a way that inspires others. For me, that's like, there's nothing better than that, So I just see it as, my life's work now going forward.
I think that's a very important role that you're playing, and on a personal note, I believe that's how, as South Africa, we're going to succeed, is through people that are in a better position actually reaching out and helping those that are following or coming up. I think that's probably how we're going to solve our challenges. If you look at the amount of challenges that we've got, we can't just look to one part of society to solve it. We've all got to get involved. Tendai, it's been an absolute honor getting to learn more about you as a person and what drives you. It's remarkable the strong links that exist between your career and your life and our clients. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose.